Hello again, YouTube. Periodically I get asked about the ownership experience of my Suzuki SV1000. During the last almost 12 years, other bikes have come and gone, but this one has remained, and that really ought to tell you something.
Suzuki based the SV1000 on the old TL1000S. From a marketing perspective, the bike was TL, that is, was a disaster. They'd had lots of handling related issues, which, well, mostly related to the rear shock and damping setup. The engine, however, is a peach, so they kept that, softened it slightly, and created this brand new frame, which is broadly the same as the SV650. So what you get in the 1000 is a very compact bike. They hung some good quality budget suspension on it. And turned it into an affordable, sensible bike. You can have one like this in the upright, unfaired version, or a slightly sportier version, the S. Pays your money, takes your choice.
The cast aluminium lattice frame carries some reasonable quality suspension. This is something Suzuki do really well. What is outwardly a budget bike has some, they make them to a pretty good standard considering what they cost. There's more adjustment here than I'll ever make the best of.
Overall, the level of equipment is pretty good for a bike built in 2008, and its lineage goes back further than that. Span adjustable levers, which, well, everybody needs span adjustable levers. We haven't all got hands the same size, have we? There's a steering damper, which some of which I suppose was done to allay the fears of the people that remembered the TL's prowess for throwing you at the road furniture. The headlight is one of the best I've ever had on a bike. There's a decent amount of under-seat storage. Generally speaking, it's a well-equipped bike. The suspension is pretty good for what it would have cost. Lots and lots and lots of adjustment, far more than I'll ever make the best use of. But I suppose the biggest thing about this bike is that engine.
The brakes are lifted off the old Gixxer 750, which are described on forums and reviews as pretty good. But to be honest, the 4-pot Tokica calipers on the front are little more than adequate, considering this is quite a light bike. And the back brake, frankly, is pretty poor.
On the move, the bike is comfortable enough, even if the saddle is a little firm. But the sort of slightly upright bars and the peg position make for a comfortable upright riding position. I have tweaked mine slightly, so they're probably more comfortable than they would otherwise be. But I mean, let's be honest, this is, despite its heritage, this is not really a sports bike. So you want it to be comfortable, which it is. You want to be able to do distance on it, which you kind of can, although the tank range is not all that. But of course that means that the saddle situation is not the end of the world, because you've got to get off it every 120 miles and fill it up with fuel. Its manners in a straight line and on sweeping bends are impeccable, which is a testament to the gear that Suzuki have selected to do the suspension work on this bike.
And of course the stiffness of the frame.
slightly lazy steering setup, say, which helps that straight line stability and that sweeping bendness, if that's a real word. But of course the trade-off is when you're really pushing on, the steering's a little bit slow and ponderous. But you know, as we all know, it's not what you've got, it's how you use it. One of the things that attracted me to this bike, apart from the obvious of the engine, is the fact that it's only about 189 kilos or something, which for a litre bike, you know, is pretty light. I like that. You know, and again, this is a nod to its sporting heritage. The suspension is quite harsh, as I said before, which is what gives it those good manners on good road surfaces. So of course it makes it a bit rough and ready on some rougher B roads, but then, you know, it was never really designed for this.
As standard, there are some power restrictions in the first couple of gears. I think this was done to stop exuberant owners flipping them over backwards, as the bike is a bit of a wheelie monster. This is relatively easily overcome if you're that way inclined. Also, there is a bit of a flat spot around about 4.5 to 5,000 RPM in that sort of area. I think this was done because when these bikes were new, that's where the emissions testing was done. So they deliberately ran them a little bit lean there so as to improve their performance for the emissions test. Again, something like a Power Commander will easily take care of that.
There's a 6-speed, fairly close ratio box on this. Again, taken from the TL1000. It is an identical set of gear ratios, although the overall final drive ratio is fractionally lower, probably to compensate for the 10% reduction in power over the TL. But I wonder whether 6 speeds on an engine like this is perhaps a little over the top. You know, there is a lot of torque available from early on. So I spend half my time just using 3 of the gears. The clutch action through the span adjustable lever is surprisingly light. You know, for a clutch that's got to take care of quite a lot of torque. Although, having said that, that is one of the downsides of these bikes, is that the clutches are notoriously weak. The baskets wear at quite an alarming rate. But there are a couple of companies that will take care of that for you. The dash is fairly comprehensive. You get that nice big tacho right in the middle and a digital speedo, which I like. Suzuki do this on several of their bikes where they have a, you know, one is analog and one is digital. I really like it. It works particularly well on this because it's this sort of symmetrical, centrally mounted arrangement. You get all the usual lights. There is a fuel light, but no fuel gauge. So the Missenden Flyer wouldn't buy one. The fuel light is one of the niggles, actually. It's a little bit pessimistic. It comes on far too early, so by the time you've been looking at it for 20 miles or so, 30 miles or so, you got fed up with looking at it and you've kind of, you know, forgotten it's on. But there is 2 trip meters, as is fairly standard. So I just use one of them as a fuel gauge. I run it to 120 miles and then I go and find some fuel. once you're up and running and underway, there is a flaw in the nice neat display, and that is that apart from the speedo, all the other digits are the same size. The clock, the temperature, the odd meter, or is that odometer? You know, mileometer, you know what I mean. They're all the same size. So if you hop from one bike to another like I do, and you're not always 100% sure where everything is, a quick glance is not enough to determine whether it's at 76.3 degrees and you've done 909 miles, or, if you see what I mean. The temperature gauge is an absolute must though, because they do, in traffic and slow moving and what have you, these bikes do run alarmingly hot. When I first got this one, I was in a constant state of panic over it, but I trawled through the forums and all the rest of it says that they all do that. The fan kicks in at 106 degrees centigrade and drags it back down quite happily. The SV1000 is exactly what I look for in a bike. It's a roadster. That is to say, it has some sporting backgrounds, but put into a bike that is made user-friendly. You can ride it every day. I don't anticipate commuting on it, but you could, despite the running hot in traffic thing, but you could. It's very, very narrow. The clutch is light. You wouldn't get to work feeling like you know, I don't know, wrist ache. Yeah, it is, as I say, it's a sort of sports bike made sensible, which means it's still quite fast. It is composed and stable, yet it's still fun. It was cheap to buy, it's relatively cheap to run, and despite a few niggles, which, let's face it, everything's a compromise in life, despite a few niggles, it's a fantastic bike, and that's probably why I've owned it for over a decade.
And like so many things in life that I enjoy, it's a real shame they don't make them anymore.